Hi guys, welcome back to the Spotlight Kid. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different that I haven't done before and give you my top 10 favorite guitar players. Um, Obviously it was a hard one to do because I love so many guitarists, and not just within rock and metal. I'm also a huge prog rock fan. I'm also a huge jazz fusion fan. Um, so um, it's mostly going to be rock and metal guys in the list, but there's going to be a couple of jazz guys in there as well. Oh, well, let's say fusion guys. And I'll give you a whole ton of honorable mentions at the end as well. Um, the order is not really too important. Although I would say that like probably my top, the top three, four, or five are pretty solid. Those guys are really have all well. I think for me, they are a cut above the other ones, but I love really everybody on this list. So don't get too hung up on where they fall, which position they land. All right, so let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is Mr. Eddie Van Halen. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like going crazy. Eddie should be number one. Eddie's, obviously was a very special, important, legendary guitarist. And, sadly we've lost him, as all of you, I'm sure, know by now. Obviously his work on those, for me, Van Halen is all about the David Lee Roth era. I really don't like any of the Van Hagar stuff. It's not for me. But those early Van Halen albums are killer stuff. Eddie just was an absolute beast, and I wish to God I could have been alive and in the United States or wherever they played to see them live, because by all accounts, it was one of the greatest rock shows you could ever see. Coming in at number 9, I'm going to throw in a relatively young guy compared to most of the others on the list here, by the name of, I'm going to butcher his last name, so I'm really sorry in advance, Christian Maunsner of, let's see, Necrophagist, Spawn of Possession, Obscura the first time round, Alkaloid, Eternity's End, his own solo music. He's back in Obscura now and has recorded their next album with the band. Probably composed most of it too. The guy is an absolute freak. He can play. He's the quintessential metal guitarist. The dude can play any metal that you want. From the slickest power metal shredding to grimy, dark, moody. I'm sure he can do black metal too really well if he wanted to. The guy can do pretty much anything in the metal world, and anybody who doesn't know him, who's watching this channel, enjoy. Thank me later. Check out some of his work with Obscura. That's as good a place as any to. And for those of you who can't stand growling, go and check out Eternity's End if you like Yngwie or power metal. Some great stuff there. Coming in at number 8, Mr. Andy LaRocque, of course, of King Diamond band fame. He's the long-serving main man for King Diamond. Great riff writer, very good shredder, very classy, and never. He always serves the music perfectly, and the guy can do it all, and he's got his sound. one of the reasons I picked the guys on this list is because each one of them has a sound, a recognizable sound. When you hear them play, you're like, aha, that's Andy LaRocque. And that's all I have to say about that. Number 7. Now I'm going to introduce a couple of jazz guys. Number 7, we have Frank Gambale. Frank Gambale is sort of known as kind of the sweep picking king, but he's, and he is masterful at that. It's kind of mind blowing, but he's far more than just that. He really can do anything on the guitar. A true master, and he is well known for playing with the Electric Band with Chick Corea, another one of my heroes, he's done a ton of solo albums and stuff, and been in a million other projects. Just an awesome, one of the best guitarists in the world for sure. Next we get number 6, Al Di Meola. So, another jazz fusion guy, of course famous for Return to Forever and his own stellar solo albums. I mean, so many great albums from him. He's dipped his toe into so many different styles, and he's been emulated, copied by so many guitarists that have come after him, and just his precision and his dedication to his craft is really admirable, and I'm a huge Al Di Meola fan. Okay, now we're into the top 5. Coming in at number 5 is Mr. David Gilmour. Now, if I'd made this list, 20 years ago, he probably would have been in the number 1 spot. I grew up listening to Pink Floyd. My mum got me into Pink Floyd when I was a little kid. I remember being a little kid, throwing Dark Side of the Moon onto the turntable, and being obsessed with Dark Side, with Animals, with Wish You Were Here, with The Wall, with Metal. Really loving those albums and loving Gilmour and the guy's tone, the guy's feel. He's so lyrical, it's so emotive, and what can you say? David Gilmour, a master, true master. Coming in at number 4, Mr. Ritchie Blackmore. Of course, of Deep Purple fame, and and of course Rainbow. 2 of my favorite bands. I love Deep Purple. I love the Ritchie era of Deep Purple, whether it be with Ian Gillan or with David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes. Just phenomenal songwriter, really unique style. Really, when you hit this, I can't think of any guitarist actually who sound anything like Blackmore, and that's one of the things I love about him. He's totally unique. So when you hear Ritchie Blackmore, hey, that's Ritchie. So he's in the number 4 slot. Coming in at number 3 is Mr. Uli John Roth. Of course, for that, famous for being in that first run of the Scorpions, producing my favorite albums from Scorpions. Sorry, Scorpions, not the Scorpions. I did that in the video, in my last video where I was talking about Electric Sun. I kept calling them the Scorpions, and that's one of my pet hates. But I'm doing it anyway, so if it happens, hey, shit happens. People call them the Scorpions all the time. But anyway, he's famous for Scorpions and those fantastic albums. and you know, especially In Trance is my favorite. But you know, all four of those albums that he is on are killer. Of course, Electric Sun, awesome. All those three albums he did with Electric Sun. He's gone on to do a whole swag of other projects, classical music, and all sorts of things. Again, a totally unique approach. He was one of the early sort of shredders, you know, way back in the 70s. He was doing things that nobody else was doing, and a real pioneer of the guitar, of the electric guitar. And I absolutely love it. I love his sound. I love how he drives his amps hard, and just you can just hear like it's just pure fire when he plays. And coming in at number 2, and probably if you'd asked me this last year, I might have put him at number 1, but I'm going to say Yngwie Malmsteen. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who are quick to label Yngwie as, you know, just a shred, you know, just a shredder who plays with no emotion, and it's just all about how fast he can play now, and all of this sort of rubbish. I don't hear that at all. I hear a ton of emotion he's playing, and especially that run of albums from the first album all the way up to Fire and Ice, I would say are untouchable. I mean, those albums are fantastic albums, and I think he's probably his own worst enemy, because, you know, when he plays live, he has over the years, you know, like, of course he's famous for playing fast, so, you know, he's lent into that, and I think maybe to his own detriment, as far as reputation goes with a lot of people. You know, and he has got a bit sloppy over the years, and the fact that he can't settle on a singer, and, you know, there's all these stories about him being difficult. I don't know how true any of that is, really, but I love his playing. I love Yngwie. As you can see, I've got him on my shirt there, with his, you know, puffy sleeves. You gotta love it. Love your dress sense there, Yngwie. Legend. And coming in at number 1, a guy who is not talked about nearly enough, and who sadly has just had to announce his retirement due to some mystery illness, I believe, is Mr. Frank Marino. Frank Marino of Mahogany Rush fame, and the guy is just, he has, in my opinion, he plays with perfect clarity. He can shred like the Dickens. He can play, you know, what do you want from him? You want shred? He's got shred. You want tasty blues? He's got that. You want jazz licks for days? He's got that too. You want a guy who can write killer songs? He's got that. You want a guy who can sing? You've got that too. I mean, Frank and the Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush albums are, that is almost a perfect catalog of albums too. We're gonna dive into that at some point, but it's you know, it's a reasonably big catalog, so, you know, I'm gonna take my time with that one. But I know there's a lot of people out there who overlook Frank Marino, and you definitely need to remedy that. He was sort of labeled with, you know, being a bit of a Jimi Hendrix clone in the early days, and that label kind of stayed with him. But you know, I'm sorry, but he's better than Hendrix. He's better than Hendrix. I know a lot of people will be furious at me for saying that, but I mean, you know, and I love Hendrix too. You know, I love Hendrix, and, you know, he's in my honourable mentions. But Frank can just do anything, and he was he's still, well, he's had to call it quits now, unfortunately. It's so sad. But anybody who doubts what I'm saying, go and try and track down a copy of his Live at the Agora Theatre DVD. I mean, that is a monster of it's like 6 hours of live playing. It's insane, and all done in one day, and doesn't miss a beat. It just is pure guitar magic. Anyway, that's it. That's my top 10. Frank Marino number one, Yngwie Malmsteen number 2, Uli John Roth number 3, Richie Blackmore number 4, David Gilmour number 5, Al Di Meola number 6, Frank Gambale number 7, Andy LaRocque number 8, Christian Malmsner number 9, and Eddie Van Halen at number 10. So as I promised before, we're going to have just a bit of a run through my honorable mentions, because even though those guys are what I settled on for the top 10, there's a whole bunch of other guys who are right there with some of those in the list, and I just can't sort of leave this without mentioning a whole bunch of them. So obviously Jimi Hendrix I mentioned already. Jason Becker, from Cacophony and his own solo album, really, his playing was just so ahead of its time. And he was, cut down by this awful, debilitating disease, which has made it impossible for him to continue playing for all these years. But who knows what kind of amazing music we would have got from Jason if he'd been able to continue. Thank God he's surrounded by a beautiful family and friends and a lot of support and everything like that, but he needs support. So if you can help him out in any way, go check out Jason Becker and everything related to him. Of course, Hank Sherman and Michael Denner of Merciful Fate. It's totally unique and awesome and recognizable. Same goes for Glenn Tipton and KK Downing of Judas Priest. Just, Glenn Tipton, the technician, KK, the wild man. Rafael Trujillo, who is a young guy who replaced Christian Malmsner in Obscura when he left. And man, this guy is something else. He can do everything, and complete control of his instrument, can shred the heaviest death metal you want, and shredding all over the place, can play jazz and fusion and blues. The guy can do everything, and he's just a young dude. I'm sure he's going to do many amazing things over his career, and he's started a band with some of the other ex-guys from Obscura called Obsidious. So check them out. They're going to be releasing an album soon. John McLaughlin from Mahavishnu Orchestra and his own solo albums, one of my all-time favorite guitarists in the jazz fusion world, an absolute master. I love him. Played with Miles Davis and a whole swag of others. A true legend. David T. Chastain, of Chastain fame, CJSS, Spike. The guy has done plenty of other things as well, his own solo albums, and just a shred master. Vivian Campbell, of course, I particularly like his work with Dio, those first few Dio albums, just awesome stuff. Malcolm Pugh, a lot of you won't know that name, but he is the sort of the lead guy, the songwriting leader of the band Inferi, the technical death metal band Inferi. And he sort of combines technical death metal, traditional death metal, and sort of with a neoclassical vibe to it. And you know, there's many technical death metal bands that do that, but he's like one of those guitarists who has his own sound and feel, and it's like instantly recognizable and awesome. I love his lines. It's so tasty. It's so cool. So any of you who enjoy the heavier side of metal, go and check out Inferi and listen to Malcolm's playing. Jim Martin from Faith No More, so good. I grew up listening to Faith No More religiously. They were one of my favorite bands for a long time. And Jim Martin, so cool. Steve Vai, you know, Frank Zappa, his own solo albums. Well, I don't need to say much about Steve Vai. Everybody knows what a legendary guitarist he is. Frank Zappa, so, I mean, I love Zappa. I grew up listening to Zappa as well. Just totally unique guy. Borelli Legrand is a great jazz player. Really, again, unique, but it's more like traditional jazz. He does do some fusion albums as well, but kind of has a bit of the Django Reinhardt thing going as well. Matthew Pascal, another technical death metal guy from the band Gorod. Anybody who likes technical death metal probably already knows Gorod, but if you don't, check them out. Really, again, a really unique band, and his style of writing riffs, he just comes up with the coolest technical riffs you've ever heard, and they're really technical but super musical and very catchy and memorable riffs, and he can shred as well. Of course, a great guitarist. Ross the Boss, you know, Manowar, the best Manowar guitarist, of course, was Ross the Boss, and I love Manowar. I'm a huge fan. Grew up with that too. Michael Schenker, of course, with Michael Schenker Group, played on the Scorpions album, played with UFO, legend, very, very good. Trace Bruance might be another one you haven't heard of, but he is the guitarist from Mr. Bungle, and another, like, his own like main project is a band called Secret Chiefs 3, and they kind of do like this insane sort of Arabic music, like but with crazy like it's like crazy fusion and heavy and twisted and sinister, but beautiful and epic and just wild and amazing to see live. One of the best live bands I've ever seen is Secret Chiefs 3. And Trace Bruance, he's the mastermind behind this. He's kind of like a musical genius in the same kind of realm as someone like Frank Zappa, I would say. Maybe not quite as prolific, obviously, but Michael Ackerfeld is another one. I love Opeth. I was huge into Opeth for a long time. I love his playing. What's the other guy in the band? Frederick Ackerson, I think. He's also great. He's, you know, obviously the shredder in the band, but Michael's, you know, I love his tasty approach. It's unique and just super classy and awesome. Mr. Randy Rhoads, couldn't have a list like this without mentioning Randy. The guy was, you know, something special, and it's so sad that he was cut down in his prime. Robin Trower, you know, those albums from Earth Below to Bridge of Sighs, awesome stuff. Alex Lifeson from Rush, I mean, man, understated but super awesome to hang with those two other guys who are both, you know, regarded as sort of virtuosos of their instruments. You know, Alex was right there, keeping up with those guys, and, you know, no sweat. Mark Reale from Riot, really underrated guy, really underrated band. Sadly, he's departed from this mortal coil as well, but very, very good, very underrated guitarist and songwriter. Scott Henderson, awesome fusion jazz player. He played with Chick Corea in the Electric Band, and actually, funnily, he sort of talked about his time in the band as being like frustrating because Chick, I love Chick. He's one of my personal musical heroes. It's so sad that he passed away and everything like that. But Chick was into Scientology, and when he was running the band, he wanted everybody to be serious, and Scott, when he was in the band, he wanted to meet chicks and party and have a good time. And Chick really sort of looked down on that and gave Scott a bit of a hard time about it. So he's kind of told some funny stories about that over the years, and you can just imagine Scott, he back in the day especially, he really looked like Screech from Saved by the Bell. But he was the party animal. He wanted to have a good time, so that's pretty funny. Ron Jarzombek, that dude from that dude could play really anything, and he's just totally unique. I really heard nobody who plays like him, from Watchtower fame, and oh man, I've forgotten the other band that he's in that is also awesome. Anyway, never mind. Dimebag Darrell, I don't really listen to Pantera that much anymore, but I grew up listening to Pantera, and Dimebag is, well, he's obviously something special. And I'll finish with Steve Morse. He had huge shoes to fill, replacing Richie Blackmore in Deep Purple, and I think he did and is continuing to do an awesome job. He can nail the Richie stuff, but he totally has his own sound, and he's brought his own thing to the band. And the last few Deep Purple albums have been awesome. I mean, some of my favorite Deep Purple albums. I love those albums. So, and that's all him. So, it's basically Steve Morse and Don Airey doing all the music, and those guys are absolutely, carrying the torch for Deep Purple and doing it amazingly well. Of course, he was in Dixie Dregs as well, which is also great. Anyway, that's it. That's my guitarist special. There's many more that I could list, but I think we'll leave it there. So thanks for joining me to discuss these great guitar players, guitarists, and let me know in the comments if you feel like I missed anybody, or what's your top 10. And please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. That would be awesome. And if you can share the video as well, I'd be much obliged. Anyway, so that's it from me, the Spotlight Kid. Thanks for watching. Stay metal, and see you next time.